Here's why mornings are crucial. First and foremost, the reason that I think mornings are a challenge for most people is because we were conditioned as children. We only woke up when our parents forced us to. Otherwise, we'd stay sleeping. It's an important piece to understand for people that are listening that are like, I'm not a morning person, so I don't even want to hear why mornings are important. It doesn't apply to me. Saying I'm not a morning person, it's like someone that has never run before. Like, yeah, you're not a runner if you don't run. But the big thing is when we were growing up, our parents forced us out of bed to get ready for school. And you think about that. Your brain, while it was developing as a child, you were naturally resisting and resenting waking up in the morning. And whenever you were given the chance, you slept as long as you possibly could. And then like for most of us, when I turned 18 and I left for college, I'm like, cool, I'm going to schedule my first class to start at 11 so I can stay up all night, right? And so if you understand that that's actually why most people, the majority of society says, I'm not a morning person. It's not that you're not a morning person, it's that you have an unconscious resistance. And of course, you can overcome that. And that's a big part of my book is like teaching how to do that. But why is the morning crucial? That's the important part of understanding. You can overcome the limitation of I'm not a morning person, but how you start your day is arguably the single most important decision that you make because it sets the tone, the context, and the direction for the rest of your day. In other words, if you start your day by putting yourself in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state right after waking up, you're able to show up better at your best for yourself, the people you love, the people you lead. So it literally impacts your relationships, your health, your motivation, your discipline, your fitness, your finances. Every area of your life can be improved by simply making some shifts in the morning.
So that has definitely been my experience. I want to poke a couple holes in this idea that we trained ourselves for the morning and that it starts the day right, because I'll tell you two things. One, I agree about the training part, but I also am curious if some people are more prone to have a circadian rhythm that thrives at night as compared to the morning. Like, do we know anything about circadian rhythm and genetics? Where do those two come together that maybe some people are just more night owls and not morning people? Yeah. Which leads me to the second question, which is what my family is. My whole family are night owls. So the only challenge that I have with my morning routine is that it now takes me out of relationship with my family at night. I can't watch a movie with them and they want to eat late. I don't want to eat late. So it's a piece that I've been really wrestling with. So I'm curious your thoughts on those two nights.
So yeah, I've had in-depth conversations about that. I mean, I've obviously done research, but I've had in-depth conversations as well with my friend, Dr. Michael Bruce. Do you know Michael, the sleep doctor?
Oh, yeah.
So he's known as the sleep doctor. Yeah. And he's argued that there are certain predispositions. I'm not a researcher. I'm more of an experiential learner, right? And not just my experience, but I go, okay, for example, the Miracle Morning has helped millions of people, 72% of who said they were not a morning person before they read the book, and now they swear by it. So to me, it's like, all right, if 2 million people, the majority of them shifted from saying, I'm not a morning person, and if they had read research that says, oh, I'm predisposition, no wonder, but they were able to change it. And I'll give you one specific example of Pat Flynn. Do you know Pat Flynn? He hosts the Smart Passive Income podcast. So Pat's one of my favorite people. And when he interviewed me, 8 years ago, he started the interview by saying, Hal, I'm not a morning person. In fact, my kids wake me up in the morning by, that's how I wake up. They're my alarm clock. He has these small children that are adorable and they shake him awake. Daddy, wake up. And I go, how am I going to convince Pat that he should get up to an alarm when his children wake him up? And at the end of our session, he said, Hal, I've believed I'm not a morning person, but I'm willing, what you're saying makes sense. I might be missing out on a level of productivity because I am subscribing to a limiting belief that says I'm a night owl. He goes, I get my best work done at night, but I'm not starting the day in a peak way. So he said, I'm committing I'll do the Miracle Morning 30-day journey and I'll give it a shot. And now, it's been 8 years later, the Miracle Morning is a part of his life. It completely shifted. And according to him, he said it quadrupled his productivity. So my answer to your question is, I've read research on both sides. I don't know. I just know that I've surveyed hundreds of thousands of people, and 72% of Miracle Morning practitioners around the world answer the survey question, I never believed I was or could be a morning person until I read the book. So again, that to me, it's just a large sample of research that it's like, well, if it worked for 72%, who knows?
Yeah. I want to address that really interesting point for a second, because this is something that shows up in the science world a lot, is when we have neuroscience, like when we look at how Dr. Bruce would be looking at sleep and the way that he analyzes this, if you're looking at it through a scientific lens, we have to remember that science is not reality. You're looking at one aspect that you're pulling out and you're trying to measure. So to me, it gets us in the ballpark. It's something we should be curious about. The second thing and this has been a real pet peeve of mine recently, because we hold science up on this platform and we go, if science says it, it must be true.
Yeah.
But if you know research, you understand that that is a very fabricated environment that you have put somebody in to manipulate and to see one aspect of their health.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the second thing that you said, which I think is really important, is the experiential. And I recently heard, we talk a lot about the N of one, where it's like, try it on yourself, figure out what works for yourself. But I recently heard something called citizen science studies, where they are taking a group of people and they're saying, we want to test this and do it in the cleanest way we possibly can and see if our theory is accurate. What I just heard that you said is you did a citizen science observational study.
Yeah.
You took all these people and you said, okay, how many of you weren't morning people? How many of you became morning people? And what was the result? And that's how I see what you just said. And I think it's profound. I don't want it to be lost in the conversation of science.
Yep. I love that you pointed that out, because I think you're exactly right. And again, I'm not a scientist, but I think you can, there's obviously almost all science. There's a lot of it with both sides of the issue, right? So it's like, well, which science is correct? I'll tell you that for me, something that was really eye-opening when it comes to waking up early is, or I shouldn't say, it's related. When I was diagnosed with cancer, so this was 7 years ago, I was given a 20 to 30% chance of surviving. And my wife was terrified because she received that data and took it as truth, as law. And I think that science can create a lot of limiting beliefs for people, because they hear a statistic, they hear some data point and they go, oh, that's me. So therefore, that's it. For me, I decided there's a 100% chance that I will be among the 20 to 30% of those that survive this cancer. And I think I want people to not dismiss, we can call that individual science, right? It's like, well, yeah, science says that I'm predispositioned for this or that, or I'm now the whole of this group of people. This is what they experience. But guess what? It undermines the mind-body connection that is unique to every individual. And so again, it's that experiential, component of like, I was diagnosed with cancer. I said, I will beat it. When I was in my car accident, told I would never walk again. I'm like, no, I'm going to walk again. I don't care what the doctors say. They might be experts in quote unquote medicine or whatever they study, but they're not experts in me. And I want anyone listening, if you have any sort of physical ailment, any disease, any mental any limitation that's been put on you by other people, I want you to consider that no one is an expert in you, only you. And there have been, call it a miracle, call it whatever you want, right? But there have been countless human beings that have defied the logic of doctors to create miraculous results. And if you choose, I believe that all of us have that ability.